It is rumored that 800,000 military personnel will be transported through these land corridors, a significant number for Russian leader Vladimir Putin. In response to Russian aggression and the threat of the war spreading beyond Ukraine, the United States and NATO have mobilized troops in Eastern Europe. The U.S. has increased its troop presence in Europe to over 120,000, while NATO has nearly eightfold its military presence on the Russian border. At a recent meeting of the U.S.-led alliance's defense ministers, it was decided to increase the number of combat-ready troops from 40,000 to 300,000 and to strengthen air support on the eastern flank. Current strategies include landing in Dutch ports and then traveling by train through Germany to Poland. NATO is actively expanding these plans to other ports to ensure communications remain intact despite possible disruptions by Russian forces. The development of these corridors follows a decision taken at last year's NATO summit in Lithuania, where leaders pledged 300,000 troops to maintain a high level of defense readiness. Lieutenant General Alexander Solfrank, head of NATO's JSEC Logistics Command, emphasized the importance of building resilient logistics networks in light of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. With the recent accession of Sweden and Finland to NATO, the strength of the international military alliance against Russia has rapidly increased. 2 years after the start of the war in Ukraine in 2022, Finland's military reinforcement of NATO's eastern flank from the Arctic latitudes to Bulgaria's Black Sea coast is now a more tangible reality. Similarly, Sweden's assurance to NATO from the Scandinavian region is a game-changing move that shifts the overall balance. The entry of both countries into NATO has led to constant activity along the 2,500-kilometer border between the Atlantic Alliance and Russia. In fact, NATO's military reinforcement of the eastern flank is nothing new. It began in 2014 following Russia's annexation of Crimea. Now, as the alliance celebrates its 75th anniversary, a new military high command to coordinate all forces is expected to be finalized. Within NATO, it is widely recognized that Russia will eventually attempt to expand westward into Ukraine. There is currently no direct conflict with Russia. Recently, NATO has increased its military presence on the Russian border nearly eightfold. There are 130,500 NATO troops in Poland, 20,800 in Lithuania, 9,000 in Estonia, 9,100 in Latvia, 5,100 in Slovakia, 79,300 in Romania, 24,800 in Hungary, and 26,900 in Bulgaria. The largest share in the NATO task force belongs to the U.S. Army, with over 100,000 troops in Europe. Last January, it was announced that the U.S. military presence in Europe was increased from 67,000 to around 80,000. With subsequent deployments, this number is estimated to be over 120,000 troops. According to 2023 official data, the country with the highest concentration of U.S. Army troops is Germany, with over 38,000 troops. Germany is followed by the UK and Italy. Until the beginning of the year, the number of U.S. military units in Europe was around 100,000. Now, with an additional 20,000 troops deployment, the U.S. military presence in Europe is estimated to be around 120,000 troops. Possible deployments are particularly concentrated around Poland's border with Ukraine and Belarus, as well as around Kaliningrad, Russia's European territory. On the other hand, there are also significant deployments to the Baltic states. Preparations for a possible Russian offensive are being stepped up every day. At the same time, NATO has made serious deliveries of fighter jets and armored vehicles to the Eastern Bloc. The U.S. military aims to turn the Eastern Bloc into an impenetrable wall, equipping the countries with the most advanced weapons and special units over the last 3 months. In the latest shipments, the U.S. sent 20 AH-64 Apache attack helicopters to Latvia, a squadron of F-22 fighter jets to Poland, and a division of M1A2 Abrams tanks. Additionally, HIMARS, Patriot, and NASAM systems have been deployed in Eastern Bloc countries. The borders of Russia and Belarus are blockaded by HIMARS and Patriot systems, with at least 2 squadrons of F-35 stationed at nearby air bases. The United States has increased its troop levels in Europe to Cold War levels. Currently, the number of U.S. troops in Europe exceeds 120,000, with more expected to be sent. Pentagon officials have stated that U.S. troops sent to Europe for special missions may remain in the region for an extended period. Troops are particularly expected to stay in Poland and Eastern Europe. Russia's attacks on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine and heavy defeats on the front line could push Putin into a severe deadlock, forcing him to take even more radical steps. Russia's threat to use nuclear weapons and its proposal to redraw maritime borders with Finland and Lithuania have led Europe and the U.S. to increase security measures in the Eastern Bloc. Poland is strengthening its defense by building a 430-mile-long military fortification line known as the Tusk Line, while Estonia is constructing 600 military bunkers along the front line as part of the Baltic Defense Line. Russia's hunger for invasion extends beyond Ukraine to Eastern Europe, the Baltics, and Arctic Ocean territories. Joris van Blodel, a senior fellow specializing in Russian military affairs at the Egmont Institute, the Royal Institute for International Relations in Belgium, reports that nearly all ground forces are deployed in Ukraine. It is predicted that once the defense industry is reorganized, Moscow will resume offensive operations within the next 2 to 5 years. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk stated in a March interview that the most crucial country in the rearmament race is Poland. By 2024, Poland plans to invest heavily in defense capabilities up to 4.1% of its GDP, quadrupling its spending since 2014, and has allowed NATO troops to be stationed in at least 8 regions. The total number of NATO troops in Poland has increased from 2,800 in March 2018 to 12,000 today. One of the places where NATO's military forces are stationed is Bemowo-Pisky in northeastern Poland, 100 kilometers from Russia and 250 kilometers from the Suwalki corridor, which separates Kaliningrad from Belarus. According to local news sources, there are over 1,000 soldiers for every 100 residents in this village. Additionally, American, British, Croatian, and Romanian soldiers, along with tanks, howitzers, and anti-aircraft systems, are deployed in Bemowo-Pisky. In addition to NATO-led forces in Poland, there are also many points with U.S. military personnel. According to the Polish news agency, this number has increased from 4,500 in 2022 to approximately 10,000 now. Since the summer of 2022, the United States has established its first permanent garrison in Poznan, which houses the command of the U.S. Army's 5th Corps, responsible for all U.S. forces in Europe. In Redzikowo on the Baltic Sea coast, Americans are in a significant position for NATO's missile defense shield, which became operational at the end of 2023. Additionally, since May, U.S. Special Forces have established a base in Krakow with around 200 personnel. The remilitarization of the Eastern Front is also a significant concern for new NATO members like Sweden and Finland. However, unlike Poland, there are currently no Atlantic Alliance bases in either country, although Finland has a 1,300-kilometer border with Russia. Finns have been divided on the potential for creating a permanent NATO battle group, like in the other 8 countries on the Eastern Front since 2022. However, over the past 2 years, Stockholm and Helsinki have benefited from increased large-scale military exercises around their territories and increased naval patrols by French ships. Since February 2022, Finland has stabilized the presence of approximately 20 NATO forces. In the Baltic countries, where concern about Russia is highest in Europe, military measures include expanding training areas, strengthening existing bases, and deploying new equipment. The large-scale deployment of Allied troops dates back to 2014, with occasional reinforcements of a few hundred troops observed. Thank you for watching our video. We've provided a comprehensive overview of the military developments and security measures in Europe. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for more updates. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.